Hi, this is Shane Starr. A sort of random video today. It's been on my mind, but I haven't thought about it too much, which is unusual. Usually I sort of plan out my videos a little bit more, but um, I've been thinking about mistakes and avoiding mistakes, predominantly at work, and how different people respond to making mistakes. And so this video is going to be about how each Enneagram type responds to mistakes. So we'll just go in order, and some of these I have more in common with or more experience with in myself and others than others, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so starting with Enneagram 1, and this one hits hard. So when an Enneagram 1 makes a mistake, he or she really takes it hard. I know, for instance, when I make mistakes, I really go deep and go back in the past. What happened here? How did it happen? Why did it happen? How could I have prevented it? How can I prevent it in the future? And oftentimes that whole process replays in my head a few times before I finally feel comfortable enough to move on. And those mistakes are painful. They can really weigh on a person. If they're an Enneagram 1 type at least. And so I would say a lot of that has to do with Enneagram 1 priding themselves on not making many mistakes. So when it does happen, a stark reminder that we're all human doesn't really help that much. They're still hard to take. So that's Enneagram 1. I think Enneagram 2s tend to, they don't like mistakes either. None of us do really, but I think Enneagram 2s like to make up for the mistakes, a nice gesture. It's like, hey, I know I messed up that lease renewal, say, but here's coffee for everyone, or let me help you with this burden or that burden, or let me do something else to make up for this thing I did wrong. And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. But the good thing with Enneagram 2s is they'll try to make up for a mistake. They know it was a mistake. They'll try to learn from it and move forward. But they are the most likely type out of all the Enneagram types to actually try to sincerely do something about the mistake, make up for it. Call the person and apologize about the mistake, apologize to their colleagues, apologize to their supervisors, and not just apologize, but actually do something to make it better moving forward. Enneagram 3s. Enneagram 3s usually make mistakes because they're rushing to the next thing too quickly. And so it's usually a missed detail, a missed signature, something like that. And I think that, Enneagram 3s react to mistakes the same way they made them, and that's with impatience. It's like, oh, do I got to sit here and get told I already know what I did wrong? Let me move on, that kind of thing. And unfortunately, that attitude leads itself to sometimes making the same mistake twice. And it's usually a detailed missed. So how do they respond? They usually already figured it out and want to move on. So they don't internalize it too deeply. They don't let it sit too heavily within themselves. They will usually listen only as much as they have to, and then try to move forward from there and avoid the situation that led to the mistake next time. Leave the mundane details to someone else, and let them continue on their road to achievement. Enneagram 4s, I would say the way they handle mistakes, unfortunately, they might have the most unhealthy relationship with mistakes of any of the types. I think a mistake with an Enneagram 4 at work can be interpreted as a confirmation that they're not at the right office, or they're not in the right job, or they're not even in the right career. and they can take mistakes pretty deeply like ones and strive to, apologize like twos, try to move forward from it like threes, but it emotionally hurts them. I've seen some Enneagram fours make mistakes before, and they don't take it much better than ones. And I think most of the time they need encouragement to move forward from it, so that it doesn't get them too down. Moving forward with Enneagram fives, I would say they're the least likely type to make mistakes at work, because they usually, their whole mantra is knowledge is power, and Enneagram fives tend to do a good job with learning their own protocols and procedures. But when they do make a mistake, I think they have a healthy relationship to those events, insofar as instead of thinking of it as a mistake, they think of it as a learning opportunity moving forward. They're almost detached from the impact, very unlike fours. I noticed this. A lot of numbers are very different from the numbers right next to them on the Enneagram when we're taught to think of them as close. That's why we have wings. Not everyone subscribes to the wing theory, but most Enneagram followers do. But fives are detached. It's like you show a five a mistake he or she made, and they'll just be like, okay. So, what's the procedure moving forward? And it doesn't hit them at all, not like a one or a four for sure. And they don't get angry or impatient about it like a three. A five will just sit there and listen and move on from it. And, I think, gosh, I wish I could be more like that. Enneagram sixes. When an Enneagram six makes a mistake, they usually see it both for better and for worse, similar to twos in that it's a collective event. If they're defensive, they'll blame other people about the mistake. And if they take a lot of self-responsibility, they will ask the support of the group, their colleagues or supervisors at work. Hey, please help me how to improve this so I don't make the same mistake again. I think they have a pretty healthy relationship with regards to mistakes, because they don't take it as hurtful as a four does. They don't let it get them down like a one does. There might be a little bit of that, but not as bad as either of those two types. I think sixes, like twos, will learn from their community in how to avoid those going forward. Enneagram sevens. In my experiences at work, at least in office work, Enneagram sevens are the most likely type to make a mistake at work. They're usually having a good time. They're usually bright and smart, so they think that they don't need to follow all the rules or dot their I's and cross their T's. And sometimes they pull it off, but sooner or later it leads to a mistake. I see them downplaying mistakes the most out of any type, somewhat like the three, but the three will acknowledge it and be like, okay, whatever, let's move on to the next thing. The sevens want to move on quickly too, but they'll just downplay it like, oh, okay, that's no big deal, none of us are perfect, everyone's human, just they don't take it, completely opposite of fours or ones. Sevens are just chill about mistakes, just water off a duck's back, they don't care. They're just about, they could laugh right after the same mistake that'll have a four rethinking his or her whole career, or have a one in depression all day. Sevens just let it go and on to the next. And I see them making a lot of the same mistakes more than once, but eventually they get it. They're usually smart. That's the weird thing about sevens, is they're sort of like airheadish but smart at the same time. And usually we don't think of those two things going together, but in sevens it can. Enneagram 8s. Enneagram 8s take mistakes seriously, but I would liken them a little bit to 6s in the sense that they're a little bit healthier with regards to mistakes. An unhealthy 8 will blame someone else for the mistake. Well, it's his fault. It's her fault. Oh, this is a stupid system. That's why, the computer didn't work properly, or the software, it has, problems. So an unhealthy 8 will blame others, but a healthy 8 will usually listen like a 5 almost, and maybe get help like a 6 if they need it. Usually they're a little more independent than a 6, but Enneagram 8s will just listen to what they did wrong and just be like, okay, and they don't get hurt over it like a 4 or a 1 will, and they don't try to just blow past it like it didn't happen like a 3 or a 7 will. They'll sit with it, understand what they did wrong, learn from it, and move on. I rarely see 8s make the same mistake twice. Like, out of any type, if they do make a mistake, they'll never make that same mistake again. Okay, last but not least, 9s. 9s usually make mistakes not out of action, but out of omission. It's not something they said or something they wrote or something they did. It's something they didn't say, something they didn't do, something they should have said. 9s are chill, they go with the flow. And when they do make a mistake, they'll just listen carefully. Who knows what goes on in a 9's head? I don't. I've said before, if Enneagrams had polar types, mine would be 9. I don't know what they think or how or why they think the things they do. But with regards to mistakes, that's what makes them hard on this video to describe, because they'll sit there and you don't know what's going on inside their head. Are they hurt like a 4 and hiding it? Are they determined to be better and improve like a 1 or maybe a 6 would be? Are they like just asking themselves, when is this over, like a 3 would? You don't know, because they'll just sit there and go, okay, well, do you understand now? And you're just like, okay, all right, go back to work. That's how 9s, how they respond. I think they listen, and the only proof as to whether or not the advice worked is whether the mistake's repeated or not. Anyway, so there's all 9 Enneagram types, how they react to mistakes. Hope it was fun. That's it. Have a good one.